just, sorry, I think can you hear it? Oh, it's very low, huh? Maybe, I think you can maybe bring the mic a little bit closer to you.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
can.
because I think the mic
I can keep it like that.
is perfect.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it was not.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's all three is fault.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
No. So I was saying. So it was saying, think about what entrepreneurship means for this region, right? So back to global, Microsoft mission empowers all of this.
And if I may ask, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
but if you can talk a little bit slowly, because I
Yeah.
know the English is not
Okay.
in the best format, so just for people to get also
Sure.
all the concepts that you're trying to communicate.
No problem.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So at the global level, Microsoft mission when it comes to entrepreneurship is that of empowering startups to grow and scale. Um, so the concept behind is to provide value beyond just pure technology. Of course, every technology player wants to have more companies, more business building on their technology. But the real mission there is to provide value to startups. And the value from a Microsoft perspective comes from the fact that Microsoft has a worldwide presence. Microsoft works with a lot of corporates around the world. So the focus is for us at a global scale to connect in a meaningful way startups to corporates. So give access to enterprise solutions, B2B startups to corporates, and by doing that accelerate their sales, and by doing that bring also innovation to corporates. So build a sort of an ecosystem where both sides, startups and corporates, can co-create and collaborate together. This is at a global level, so allowing also startups to access to markets where they don't necessarily have a presence and scale globally.
And so can you tell us a little bit about those startups, what industries they're in? Do you have a particular focus and a mandate on specific startups within industries, or is it just startups generally, more generally, of course in the context of Microsoft?
Sure. In the context of Microsoft and globally, we do have some industries where we are more focused, but in general, we aim at having technology empowering everyone, every single. So we are agnostic, if you want, in terms of specific industries or verticals. Even if there are some industries where, by the fact that Microsoft has more clients or more value proposition to offer, because there are specific solutions. I'm thinking about now we're talking a lot about agri-tech. And Microsoft developed this solution called FarmBiz, which is hosted on the cloud to collect data from different partners and allow agri-tech solutions to tap into this data and then build on top of that without reinventing the wheel. Same thing in other industries like financial services, like retail, so there are healthcare. So there are industries where there is more that Microsoft can offer because there is a strong value proposition behind. But we want to empower. We think that we need to build products for everyone, and technology should be for everyone. So we are trying to democratize and give access to technology to every single business or industry in the world.
So if I may, I would like to go maybe one step back. And where is Microsoft today in the technology scene? What are the key areas of focus for Microsoft today? Globally, and then maybe again, when it comes to the context of UAE or maybe the Middle East, what are the strategy of Microsoft?
Sure. So the strategy is definitely, since Satya moved on and became CEO a few years ago, it definitely refocused and positioned the company more in the cloud, right? So definitely the whole adoption of the cloud and enabling businesses to build on the cloud is definitely a priority for the company globally and regionally. And I would say the investment that Microsoft did in the UAE with local data centers, for example, is really important for this country, right? So because it enables a lot of organizations and businesses, especially in regulated industries, to build locally, to be compliant with the laws, to have data hosted locally, so to build their business in a good way. So cloud is definitely a priority, but also there are other areas in the business that are definitely interesting if you think about the future of work, so remote work and collaboration tools. If you think about modern workplace, so all those solutions with Microsoft 365 to allow people to collaborate and work together and share information. And if you think about also data and analytics, the whole suite of Power Platform, Power BI, or all those solutions that enable new businesses, small businesses, corporates or enterprises to build applications and also to analyze data and build solutions and applications on top of the data.
So I was going to say that's traditionally how we know Microsoft, right? So when you talk about Microsoft, we do think about the cloud. But you're in a very particular and I think a very special department within Microsoft. That's Microsoft for Startups. And I understand they're doing similar but different things across the globe. But in the UAE, Microsoft for Startup is really your baby. So can you just tell us about what you're doing with Microsoft Startup, what your vision is, how it's similar but different to what they're doing across the globe, and why you've done it in the UAE? Why did you choose UAE to set up Microsoft for Startups?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, on one hand, we are aligned with the global team, right? Because we are part of the global team, which is Microsoft for Startups globally, and of course, we have programs that apply globally. And the reality is those programs are largely geared towards later stage startups, which we do have also in this part of the world, but not as many as in other ecosystems that invested into building their ecosystems early on. So what we are going to do here is Microsoft for Startups in this region will definitely align the startups that fit the criteria for the global program on one hand, but on the other hand, what we did is developing a strategy that makes sense for this ecosystem to try and have an impact on this ecosystem. The ecosystem here is still earlier stage. So we are launching a series of programs that are geared towards, first of all, startups that are a few steps before startups that would qualify for our global program. So the aim there is to take them into a journey, hands-on, where we can take them to that level. So we can help startups either grow revenues, so build the right business model, understand how to go to market, understand how to get clients, and so on and so forth, while building on technology, so building on the right architecture, building products that people are going to use and can scale. And on the other hand, we are trying to help them get to funding, right? Because at the end of the day, that's the engine that will fuel the next wave of growth for them. On top of that, we also have programs where we are launching programs that will tap even earlier on. So we are looking at youth in particular as the key engine of the transformation that we envision or we wish to happen from here, from UAE. Why UAE? UAE is a fantastic place across the region because of how government is involved with entrepreneurship, how government can make decisions kind of quickly and change things, so can inspire and can play the leader within the ecosystem where other governments can follow and see, lead by example. And also Microsoft has been investing, as we said before, in this region with local data centers, so there is a nice a combination of positive factors there that allow us to push hard on this agenda in the UAE. And UAE can definitely become a hub, a regional hub, in between different regions, not just the Middle East, but across with Africa and other Europe and the other regions, right? So, and there will be more incentives and more laws that will be approved in the coming months to easier for entrepreneurs and founders to develop them. For me, it's important having programs and spending effort and time as well, focusing on youth, because it's also a matter of changing the mindset. Because if you ask me, if I look ahead and a vision of this place becoming a regional hub and definitely having what it takes to get there, but the reality is we're also starting behind, right, compared globally to other ecosystems. And that has to do also with the mindset of not having only businesses here that are copycat of businesses that proved already elsewhere, which is great, it's important to have localization, right? But it's also start exporting from here new concepts, new ideas, new business model, new products. So thinking about, the ambition should be solving real problems. So that should be the real focus that I want to see in the next wave of founders, entrepreneurs in this region. Focusing on real problems, and then identifying and developing products and solutions that can solve for that, because that is what enables then the business to scale and to have impact on the millions of lives and people.
Sure. So I have a practical question. Let's say I'm a company in data analysis or in a VR mixed reality, or in practical terms, how can I benefit from Microsoft Startups program? In practical, what can I benefit? How can I become part of it and leverage that?
Absolutely. So there are different ways depending on the maturity of the startups and the stage the startup is at. So if the startup, if you're talking about startups that are already, they already solved the product market fit, right? So they already have a product that they validated and they validated that a market exists for that product. These are kind of later stage startups. These startups might be a fit for what I said before is our global program. So if they meet those criteria, we can onboard them into the global program, and we have a set of resources available to help them build the product to scale.
Because do they have to pay to be part
No,
of the
no, no, no,
program?
no. We don't take equity. There is, we don't take equity. There is nothing to pay. Actually, there are two sides always on our programs. One is the access to technology. So what we do is usually we include credits for building on the cloud and licenses for other products that Microsoft has, but also mentorship and support in terms of reviewing the architecture of the product, building the product, think about scalability, cost optimization, integration with third-party applications, for example, that are all on the technology side. On the go-to-market, we have a journey where for enterprise solutions, we take them onto a marketplace. So basically, the aim there, the goal there is to move those solutions from being market ready, because we're talking about, in this case, product market fit done, market ready solutions, but to become enterprise ready. And that requires a lot of effort. It's a journey. So we take the startups on that journey by helping them publish their solution on our marketplace, helping them with pricing strategy, go-to-market, how to pivot their model if it's just a B2B marketplace into a SaaS solution, software as a service solution, for example. And then becoming transactable. That means in a region like this where we think that MENA at large is one region, but in reality it is not, because if you are a fintech, for example, today, and there are already different regulations only in the UAE, and you want to scale in MENA, it's a hard job for an entrepreneur to achieve that. So by becoming transactable on the marketplace, basically we give access to markets where startups and founders don't necessarily have a presence, but we can take care of the transaction so they can get business done faster, and they can get to a better valuation, a better round of funding faster. And then for the startups that get through this journey, the ultimate goal is to make them partners to Microsoft. If they achieve that late stage, if you want, basically we will be able to unlock an even broader involvement of Microsoft, because basically they will become partners where our teams on the ground will be able to sell that IP, those solutions, to their corporates. And the reason behind this is that Microsoft is involved and exposed daily to conversation with clients on digital transformation. And so there is a lot of knowledge there about what are the use cases, the challenges, the scenarios where these corporates are facing and where they are stuck. And it's not just by selling Microsoft products that those challenges will be solved, right? You need a real solution. So, and most of the times you can see that startups might have already solved for those use cases. So the thinking behind is, if you build an ecosystem where we can bring startups that have built for those use cases or for those solutions to corporates to help them in their innovation journey, while giving business to startups and while having this ecosystem building on Microsoft, there is a win-win-win kind of circle that is beneficial for everyone, because there is more innovation happening and there is more development of startups happening, more jobs created, and so on and so forth. This is for startups that are post-product market fit, and this is how we would work with them, by tapping them into a global program that we are executing, of course, for here. For startups that are a few steps earlier, what we are going to do is, in the coming months, we already announced that a couple of weeks back in January, we are going to launch an accelerator, virtual accelerator, that will be geared towards enterprise solutions, but earlier stage. So we don't have the same criteria, of course, of the global program. There will be, it will be startups that are not necessarily backed by institutional funding and not necessarily generating, crazy amounts of revenues, because the purpose will be exactly to take them through the journey to increase or to understand how to make, to tweak the business model, to make more revenues or to get funding. So this accelerator will kick off the first cohort around end of August. And we are putting in place all the necessary steps to, to have a competition at some point in the next months and then select the startups. We will have two cohorts per year of 15 startups each, and we will have a scalable model to add expansion partners on top to fund additional cohorts if needed. Longer term, we are, as I said before, we are also looking at youth. So we are finalizing the plan for a program that will touch youth to share with them the experience of what entrepreneurship really is as a mindset, and start there, and then create a sort of a funnel. So the project is really ambitious. I cannot share more at this stage about that, but it will be really ambitious in terms of the impact we aim to have across the whole region. And from there we want to create a funnel from students that are touched into ideas, into incubation, acceleration, and so on and so forth.
I know we'll fight. So
I want to ask you a question.
Actually, I want to ask a question. Okay. So I think I want to ask you a question, and then I think we will take a break and maybe allow the audience to ask questions so they don't get bored as well. So those programs, I am very sure a lot of people are not aware about it, from the people here or the startup in general, and I think that's an opportunity for a country like UAE to become a hub for major international companies. These are big opportunities for the business community to really tap into the opportunities. But I will ask you, Threya, as a business owner and kind of also a startup, were you aware of what a company like Microsoft is doing or other companies, and have you ever participated in some of their programs, and if yes, what, and if not, why, and how do you think such programs can help you as a business?
Okay, so I guess the starting point is with an accelerated program like Microsoft, what they're really looking at is, although they're sector agnostic, they're looking at what companies and startups have something that can actually scale and grow. So our business is a little bit different in the sense that we provide more services, and until we have a platform or a technology that's supporting what we do, it would be seen by say Microsoft or one of the other sort of tech players as being something that's scalable. So personally, for example, in our business, I wouldn't approach Microsoft until I was ready to launch our platform, which we've spoken about before, where we can automate and generate, say, documents, or for example, we have a platform where people can ask us questions and they get automatic answers to. So until we have a technology which can actually scale what we do, then I would, approach Microsoft and some of the other accelerator programs that are out there. But how did I hear about Microsoft? Well, essentially, most of the startups that we support are in technology. So for us, when we see something that is scalable, we will go out to the region and say, what is in the ecosystem? What is available out there to support our startups to get ahead? So how can they participate in these accelerators? So for example, we have a number of fintech clients, and we know, for example, within the DIFC, they've got fintech hives, and they've got a few other accelerator programs, so that would be a perfect fit for them. And then what we do is we make that introduction for them. So fintech, you would go to the ecosystem that's developed, and it's very well developed both in the ADGM and the DIFC. If, for example, we had another client with a different type of technology, or, it could be like an e-commerce platform, for example, or it could be, say, an ag tech or ed tech, most of the times I would say to them, we'll go to Sharjah Innovation Technology Park, because again, Sharjah Innovation Technology Park is providing an ecosystem for those players. So I think as a startup, if you're moving into that space and you're just becoming an entrepreneur, the question you have to ask yourself is, where do I want to be and why? At the moment, UAE has become saturated with free zones, saturated with accelerator programs, saturated for good reason. They are trying to develop an ecosystem, but not every opportunity out there will be the right fit for you. So it's a question of what do you want, why do you want it, and how will that help you develop in the industry that you're in. So that's the key question, I think, when you're trying to find an ecosystem to place yourself. It's to say, what am I doing and who's going to support me how do we scale it so that it becomes profitable, so that we either list this or we sell and make a lot of money? And this is ultimately, from an investor's perspective, what they're looking for.
Yep.
Go, yeah.
Just to build on what you were saying, the two concepts here, and it's beautiful what you were saying. One is that what is the difference at the end of the day between an SME and a startup? And the difference is whether it's a lifestyle business versus a business that is aimed to grow. But why? Why should the business grow? Because they're really solving a real problem that a lot of people have. Then you use the technology to scale it, right? So that's one thing. So that's why I'm saying the focus before the where, which is of course, I agree with you in the ecosystem. You need to answer that question. Is also the first question is, what problem me as an entrepreneur, as a founder, is it a real problem or is it a symptom, right? So this is one thing. The second point you mentioned is on the ecosystem is spot on. Actually, this is what we really need is an ecosystem, and because the ecosystem comes with abundance of ideas, you need to have more ideas, more startups as an enabling factor. And what makes an ecosystem evolve is there are different drivers, but definitely the ecosystem should have a degree of local and global connectedness that where people are coming together with diversity not just of gender, but of experiences of different disciplines that you present, for example, have here, but come together to share and support each other. So when people in the organization look at startups not to get from them, but to help them, that is what we need to ignite to make the ecosystem happen. And this is what we are trying to do. For example, working with government and corporates to surface what are the challenges that either the UAE as a country, as a nation wants to invest on, or the corporates really have, so that when we work with founders and startups, we can push those solutions and those startups that will have a market and are working on the right direction. R&D is important. There are other ecosystems where they know already now for the next 3 years that they want to invest in, I don't know, cybersecurity, and that they will have a shortage in terms of skills of 3,000 engineers 3 years from now. And they're already investing in bootcamps to create those skills and talents ahead of time. So this is what I wish we build more of this here, attracting students here with new visas, new regulations, and attracting diversity of thinking as well. Because at the cross of that diversity of ideas is where magic happens, right? So the ecosystem play is really key to enable entrepreneurs and ideas to flourish and to happen. Then at some point you also need to see the maturity of the startups, availability of early stage funding as well to make sure this is sustainable. But we see that the maturity is growing in this ecosystem. Of course, that's why I always keep the mission very high. We should think about, we should stop thinking about just, copying or, business models that are just purely services or, I think the mindset, that's why I touch base of starting from youth and where the mindset is different. So maybe it's also, there are nuances in the culture about, when we hear about you should fail fast, right? And maybe it's not really part of the culture or about failure, because there is a concept of reputation, there is a concept of what people would think about me if I fail. But think about it, most of the most successful entrepreneurs are not first-time entrepreneurs. So it means that they went through other experiences, they've been there, they've been through the ups and downs and so on and so forth. So we need to have an ecosystem that allows failure. There is this anecdote, I was in this interview with a great founder of a startup, and he was asked, why have you been successful in your life, in your startup venture? And he replied, that's easy, 2 words, right decisions. I say, wow, that sounds pretty easy in fact, but how have you been able to make the right decisions? And he said, oh, that's another easy question. It's just 1 word this time, is experience. And I say, well, it seems like you're very much simplifying the thing, and how did you get then the experience to make the right decision? And he said, another easy answer from you, 2 words again, wrong decisions. So, I mean, it's true. We need to build an environment where even if you're successful, when you build your product, you can fail fast and iterate. Or when you really fail, you don't need to hold your password close to you because you need to, fly away. I mean, or it's not costing you more than the cost of opening a business. So we need to build an ecosystem where, because you have to go through that journey as an entrepreneur, and you need to understand it's not easy. There will be ups and downs. So that's something that needs to happen. The sooner, the better for this ecosystem to thrive and really raise also the ambition of thinking about building products from here that can scale and export technology from here.
Thank you. I'd like to maybe allow the audience to ask questions, so at least we have more interaction. Anyone has any questions so far? Any burning questions? No questions?
Oh, there's one there.
We'll give you a mic, don't worry. You can
Hello,
introduce
everyone.
yourself as well.
Sure. Can you hear me? Yeah, I think so. My name is Haneen Hazim. I was born in the UAE and I graduated from the American University of Sharjah. I'm pretty much very interested in entrepreneurship because I started my own companies when I was 17 years old, and you really touched a very deep, I wouldn't say a pain, but a deep thing when you said fail fast, because I did fail, of course, with my first company, and it was a journey. But my question that I wanted to ask you, Roberto, is that is there any specific reason why you started with B2B kind of accelerators? I mean, startups that are focusing on B2B rather than B2C or even B2G, which is governments, business to governments. I'm just interested to know because I found it a little bit more enjoyable to interact with consumers a little bit more than enterprises or companies.
Yep, that's a great question. Thank you for asking. Yeah, there is a specific reason, and it connects back to the value proposition that Microsoft can bring to the table. So a few years back, Microsoft was having a different program for startups, which was mainly about giving out credits, to have startups building on the cloud, and that was mainly it. And as you know, there are many other cloud vendors that are doing the same. So what was happening is that startups and founders, especially early stage, where you still have, let's not forget it, we still have 95% of, rate of startups that are failing. You were spreading credits around, and then when the credits ended or expired, the founders were going to another cloud provider, get the credits for another year, and then to another cloud provider, get the credits for another year. So when Satya moved to CEO and he wanted to review the programs for startups, he asked it to focus on something that can bring really value to startups beyond the credits. And honestly, if you ask me, and I've been in other tech companies before, if you ask me if I'm a tech startup and I limit myself thinking that technology is a pure cost in the P&L, there's something wrong somewhere, right? Because technology should allow me instead to scale, but at the right time, of course. I need to prove, to do the product market fit and go through that journey. So the thinking has been, if we are restarting a program for startups from scratch, instead of going into an insane competition with other cloud vendors that you all know, just to offer more credits, it feels like you're offering kilograms of data somewhere to host, right? So why don't we focus instead of added value we can really bring? So that's why the thinking has been, okay, let's not be the same thing to everyone. Where we can connect in a meaningful way, where should we start? And the thinking was, let's start from B2B solutions. Why? Because there is this value proposition I was saying before, where a B2B solution would plug into this journey where we can really help a B2B get on a marketplace, get more clients, become more enterprise ready on the go-to-market, this co-sell motion. So there is a real value. Think about it, it's true. On a global scale, we passed the $1 billion in pipeline revenues for startups that became co-sell ready in the program. And that's real value for a founder. If you ask a founder, where do you need help? most of the times they would tell you, yeah, access to capital, okay, and then there we should have a long conversation because you should get capital at the right time to scale, right? Not in general. And also give me clients, access to revenues, increase my revenues, right? So this is easy to say. When we hear about access to markets, having introductions or doors opening is a great starting point, but the journey to close deals and have revenues is long, right? So by having the right partner on board, or the right partnership model on board, you can accelerate that. So in short, the reason why we are focused globally on B2B is because there is a value proposition. And on the B2C side, I agree with you. I also, if you ask me, I love more B2C than B2B, also from my previous experience. But on the B2C side, I'm not saying we will not have offering or programs in the future, but definitely we want to nail down a value proposition that goes beyond credit, the same way we started doing with B2B startups. By the way, we are working with B2C startups as well, because there are B2Cs that want to build on Microsoft technology, they like the brand, and we are helping them. It's just that they might not be plugging into the additional value proposition we extend to B2B. That's why the focus is mainly on B2B.
Next question here.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Thanks, Mr. Hussein, for the talk. And Suraya, thanks for this gathering. It's amazing. Roberto, we met before, and thanks for all the support you gave for startups. My question is very specific regarding, we are in the VR and education. So from your perspective, what the vision or opportunity for the virtual reality and mixed reality, especially education sector, with Microsoft? Are you planning something very specific, especially with this kind of Microsoft Teams and how it works, and this kind of empowering education everywhere? So, yeah, please.
Yeah, that's a wonderful question. Thank you for asking. It's a great question. So I think, and we've seen it, we were commenting before about the pandemic, and I don't know how many of you have kids, but me as a parent, having experienced that firsthand, I've seen the experience is far than optimal today, right? Because most educational institutions reacted to the situation, and they just moved part of the curriculum online, but that's not the experience. And honestly, the experience is today still very poor, and it's a nightmare for parents too. So that's not what it is, right? So for me, there is one thing that is common to a lot of different industries, and one thing that is specific to education. So the thing that is common to all the industry is that I wish that we have here founders, entrepreneurs that are thinking that disrupting an industry is a consequence of disrupting a customer or a user experience. So that should come first, in my opinion. Because we talk, what are the industries that are going to be disrupted? But what does that mean? If you ask me, for example, years from now, I don't think insurance will still be a separate industry, because it might be embedded into whatever else, and you wouldn't even see it, right? So it will be maybe on demand and something like that. I don't know. But to me, the focus should be disrupting the experience. So that means, back to first basic principles, is understanding users in their circumstances, understanding what is that they are doing while they have that need, with who, when, and understanding really the experience itself. So the focus should be more on the experience. The other thing you mentioned, definitely, education is really key, because you see, it's not, I would see, first of all, it's clear it's going to be a lifelong learning. So we should forget that education stops with a certificate. But at the same time, what is happening has showed that at different stages in your life, you need this education. Think about all the people that have been impacted by this situation, that now have lost maybe their job, or they are on hold, and they don't necessarily have the skills to recycle or to re-enter into the market, right, for example. So what is that we can do for them? Or most of the startups in EdTech that I've been working on are thinking about predicting based on the history of the student with the school, but then what about the future? You know, what about the serendipity of things, or what about the purpose and mission, and what about the world is changing, and what about many other things, right? So the thinking sometimes, what I see is still focus on responding or reacting rather than reimagining the future. And I think right now we should have come to a stage where we understand that this thing, this pandemic, is here with us, and we should, you know, coexist and live with it. But we should just think ahead and reimagine this future. Virtual reality with Teams, but only beyond Teams with HoloLens. So the technology is there, but the technology is a means to an end. Is again, when it comes to technology, what is the real pain? What is the real problem with technology? And at scale, there are also parts of the world where there are less advantages still, and the access to is very difficult. I've seen solutions that are still using feature phones and trying to do education through SMS. Imagine that mother with 10 kids and trying to educate them through SMS, right? Because it, so I think, you know, the answer to your question is technology is there. There are beautiful solutions there. For me, is more, what is the experience that you want to bring, and first of all, what problem we are trying to solve when we talk about education. Because virtual reality, sometimes I hear also AI, right? So I see a lot of pitches of startups that, by the way, this is powered by AI. Okay, what does it mean? Because most of the times, honestly, you don't need AI for the solutions that I've been presented, right? So you don't have enough data to do a modeling on top of that, so it wouldn't make sense. So I would say forget about this sexy part of adding VR or AI, or let's start from the basics and reimagine the experience in the future. What is the real problem? In education, definitely there are a lot of problems there. Whether it's for empowering the next generation of the Gen Z or Alpha is now, you know, to the skills that are needed in today's world. If you think about all the curriculums are still built on, came out of a different era, right? The industrial age and so on and so forth. So are we preparing the next generation of our future, the youth, for you know, the way we are going to work and the way, what we need for the years ahead? And I will build from there.
I actually just wanted to add to that. So we get a lot of clients all the time saying, you know, we want to get investors. So when they have a company, they think they've got a really good idea, they've got a technology, and now is the time that they want to grow it, so they're always looking for investors, yeah? And so anytime we go to a VC or angel investor or anybody who's potentially can invest, that investor, the first question is, how are you solving a problem with a novel solution? They don't want to see technology for the sake of technology. Just because there's a race for technology and innovation, it doesn't mean that you can take an ordinary concept, build in a technology, and say, now I'm going to get an investor. It doesn't work like that, because technology is not you, as he said, and you said it perfectly, that technology is just a tool. How are you using that technology that already exists and is already out there and solving a problem, but it's a novel solution? How are you just disrupting? It's not about responding, it's not about reacting, it's not about saying, but mine does something a little bit different. How different is it? How unique is it? How novel is it? Because that's what's worth investing in. It's that idea that's different. It's the technology that's so disruptive that you can never go on anymore and do things the way you did them ordinarily. And this is, I think this is what, you know, particularly entrepreneurs who are going into technology always need to think about. Am I just using like VR for the sake of using VR, now making education, you know, sexy? Or am I now using AI in a law firm because, you know, now I don't have to have junior staff, AI pushes out answers? They did that 30, 40 years ago, you know? It was just not such a big deal then. Now it's a big deal, but now more than ever it's about how are you using that technology, taking it to the next level to find such a novel solution to a problem nobody else found. And then that's where you attract investors. That's where you, for example, become very interesting for Microsoft and the likes of, you know, Microsoft and other accelerators, because now you're onto something that was not there, you know, or used before in the way that you're using it. And I think this is what startups and entrepreneurs have to constantly ask themselves. You know, how am I using the technology and disrupting with it in a way that nobody else is? So do your research, do your groundwork, go out and see who's in the market, who's doing up. even look globally, because as you were saying before, you know, there's somebody else in the world that may have done it, or globally and locally we have to connect so that there's that dialogue, there's the open communication, there's the flourishing of ideas. So you can take, maybe something already exists, but take it to the next level that that person didn't envision it. And I think that's what, as a startup and entrepreneur, you need to do, you know?
Yeah, totally agree. And sometimes innovation and entrepreneurship is not necessarily about the breakthrough, right? So you might be the one that comes with, you know, being the first one, developing something nobody ever thought of. Okay, fair enough, that's awesome. But sometimes, actually, it's the opposite. If there is no one else building that thing already, chances are, given that there is a lot of smart people around in the world, chances are that's not maybe a good place to be in, because, you know, there is a lot of people with great talent and ideas, and most of them might have been thinking about the same problem, right? So the fact that the space is crowded or there is someone else actually is a good indicator. It's not a bad indicator. And sometimes you say, oh no, we need to find you know, the blue ocean where we are the first one. Yes, true. If you find that, go ahead. But that's really difficult, right? So it's incremental innovation as well is really important. So what you're saying is, I believe I agree with that. Is spot on. And again, it's a matter of mindset, and again, it's a matter of when you said you can look around. It's a matter of getting out of the building and spending time with people. And you started the conversation this evening talking about networking. This is important, and for entrepreneurs, for founders, and for the ecosystem here, you need to be proactive in building your support network, because what you need is a support network. It's like you yourself, your own startup, and you need to have your board of advisors, right? So, but those advisors won't come to you. You need to be proactive in building that. And doing that is not just connecting people randomly or attending an event and hoping that something happens. Is doing that with a purpose. So it's about giving something back before expecting to take something. And that's where I expect the ecosystem to evolve here, to allow more and more of this giving and like to happen, because that support network is what will sustain founders, entrepreneurs' ideas to flourish and to build on that. So yeah, this is awesome.
Perfect. So please make sure that you have a target of meeting three new people tonight. So you walk out with the new connections. We are almost out of time. We have 9 minutes to go. Any other questions? Okay, fine.
Hi, good evening. Thank you for sharing your insights, Hussein, Soraya, Roberto. Really quick on me, I'm Devesh. I'm the co-founder of a digital coaching platform that's basically aiming to democratize access to coaching for organizations here targeting the MENA region. And I have a question with regards to access to corporates, right? Now, when we look at the West, and you look at what procurement structures they have, what sourcing structures they have, they're pretty startup friendly. Or not as startup friendly, but I think they're probably leading in that aspect. When we look at the Middle East here, they're not entirely startup friendly, particularly for enterprise solutions. Now, as a startup whose target market are these enterprises, it does become a challenge to access them, even if you know that you are the right solution and they agree with it. So for example, when we went through a procurement, they wanted X years of incorporation, X thousands of dollars of revenue already achieved before they could think about proceeding with companies like ours. So what is, Legal Circle or your Microsoft startups doing in having these conversations with corporates, ensuring that they are startup friendly and so they're able to build the right ecosystem here within the region?
So, yeah, okay. So I'll go ahead just really quickly, and then I believe Roberta has a lot more to say on that topic. But so essentially what we would do, so if you were to approach me and you were to ask exactly that, what you're trying to do is tap into a market that is hard to get into, because as you said, corporates have an expectation already of who can be allowed into their space and who they're able to support and who they're able to do business with. So the key thing as a startup, as I was saying earlier, is to find an ecosystem that you can networking on a corporate level to others, by being in that ecosystem or accelerator program, now you can, become involved and they will push you essentially. So in this region in particular, more so than anywhere, it's a small place and it is all about networking and it is all about saying where is the right fit for me, getting into that and then trying to push down those walls, because on your own it's very hard to do. And that's globally, but more so here in the UAE as well. So finding out the right programs, right accelerators, right ecosystems, and being part of them, that will automatically open doors for you to start connecting, and that's the best way to do it with corporates. And of course, you probably have more to add to it.
No, spot on. I totally agree. The startup corporate is a very interesting conversation because usually people associate startups to unicorns or agile companies and corporates to dinosaurs, elephants, or things that are not moving anymore. So, and that's partially true, but at the same time, let's not forget that corporates sits on reserve of cash that are higher than what venture capitalists have. So, if they were able to deploy that money more intelligently, and they have the business, right? So they have the customers. So, and they have needs because they are stuck sometimes with innovation. So that is very interesting. Now, I agree with you. So most of the times I hear this conversation, then most of the times it boils down to the finding startups and then matchmaking with corporates, right? So, and honestly, is that the real issue? Not really, because you have plenty of ideas, especially, now you can source idea startups globally. And matchmaking is not a difficult part. The difficult part is, as you are saying, is when you start working with a corporate. Because the problem is culture. So startups come with a culture where you get things done. And you get things done no matter what, you roll up your sleeves and you're agile, you just get things done, right? And corporates comes with this, let's say in a polite way, this alignment that they build around to sustain the core business, right? And that's needed because they've been successful. But then the two cultures usually comes to a clash. So there is one thing is culture. Second thing definitely is the processes. So procurement, but it's not the only one. We've seen, for example, startups failing working with corporates because they didn't do the homework of understanding if they could have got access to the right data. You think, oh, this is straightforward. Why a corporate would work with a startup if they don't give them access to the data that they need? But it's not that straightforward. In fact, many times this doesn't work. And if the startup didn't secure that access, how they could get to develop something meaningful for the customer of the corporate, right? And this is just one other example. So the long story short, I think, is that, programs like ours are good in that direction because we are trying, definitely bridging the gaps between enterprise solutions and corporates, connecting with corporates, working to close deals and so on and so forth. So this is great. Still, the problem of having the corporate really adopting the solution and using it is a different challenge as well, because I've been in sales before a long time, and one thing is selling the product. One thing is having the client you sell the product to really use it. And sometimes I sold the products and the client was not really using it. And I was joking with my teams, they say we should make it physical products. So like, the whole, because then if you see it, they say, okay, we purchased this, we put money, we remember that we have it. But it's the reality of things is that this is what happens within many of the corporations, of large corporations, not just in this region, by the way. You're talking about this region being probably behind others, but honestly, I can tell in Europe is more or less is the same thing. It's not easy. So I would say the job to be done there is to really have programs that are really have partners that are there in the journey. It's a journey, so startups need help to understand how to work with a corporate. So how to navigate a corporate, for example, a due diligence first. You as a founder did your homework to understand who the key stakeholders are, because in an enterprise, it's not straightforward, it's difficult, it requires time. Did you do that? Did you navigate the procurement? So do you know how to sell into enterprise? Do you know how to go to market to enterprise? So these are things that we can help startup with because most of the times they don't know. But at the same time, on the other side, dear corporate, do you have the right governance in place to work with the startup? The commitment. Who is leading this? Is the C-level, the CEO involved into this? Is there buy-in and support? So, it's something that needs to be done ahead of time, because otherwise the reality is what you say, is the procurement, is the operational staff, admin, bureaucracy, not knowing the stakeholders, not knowing how to navigate, and it will fail. It will definitely fail.
But I think in addition to that, it's about what is your solution? What is the corporate's problem, and how much of a pain point is there that whatever you're providing to them is the solution? So if they've got a pain point as a corporate and you can come in and provide that solution, they will start talking.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
if you can save them money, if you can make them more efficient. So I've seen that so many of our clients will go in and get into the corporate because the solution that they have provided saves them money, makes them more efficient, and basically can up their game. And that's what corporates want. They want to be more profitable, they want to be more efficient. And so if it's really addressing a pain point, that communication will
Yes.
start to happen more easily.
100%. In fact, for example, elsewhere in France, we launched a program called AI Factory. And it's a program where basically quarterly we decided to pick up one industry and one corporate working with Microsoft in that industry to work with them to surface some of the challenges that they have, and then select startups in our global portfolio to work towards a POC or a solution for 3 months where we were hands-on to help them build that product or that POC. So we did it in green energy, healthcare, we did it for agri-food with Danone, and then we are doing currently mobility and financial services.
Is this a specific program? Or?
It's a specific program, so it was launched in France, so it's not global now. It's not global now, it's done elsewhere, but with the accelerator we are launching, we are kind of replicating some of those learnings in a leaner way, if you want, to do that. And that's why I told before, our accelerator will have that focus of corporate angle and corporate engagement, because we will help corporate surface some challenges and connect. The thing that is also real is that startups do not have time. So for me, the other thing is that these POCs should not be for free. And that's also an education to corporates when we look at bridging this gap, is there should be an investment there and a commitment on both sides, because we cannot ask founders that are already risking a lot in an environment where the ecosystem is not really as evolved as other places in the world, just to spend 3-4 months of their time with, for free and with others. So for me, POCs, when we talk about this relationship corporate startups, a lot needs to be done with corporates and CEOs and their C-levels to open a conversation on how it could be done better and in a more meaningful way.
I think we'd love to know more about this program, because
Sure.
I think it's important. And I want to say, we are lucky here in the UAE, because we, as I said earlier, is the hub for most of the regional headquarters for multinationals. So the like of Microsoft and others, they're all based here, and most of them, they run their regional businesses out of here. So that's a big advantage really for startups here, because you have access to those companies and people. And the program that they designed is really you can access, and most of, if I'm not mistaken, most of the activities and the events happens here. So really you have a big advantage. Others, they travel and they communicate from distance, but for us here we have really big advantage. And I think this is great. I think I would have to conclude this now, but I think we are in the UAE about to come with the next 50 years strategy. The government already announced some elements of these strategies. I think more strategies will come. I'm talking about the federal government for innovation, for SME support, for entrepreneurship, and I think the timing is great. But as my colleagues here suggested, starting a business is not an easy ride. And to do a business, you have to get your hand dirty. And you have to really spend time, educate yourself, build relationship, solve problems. You can solve problems, or in a country like us, I always say, leverage on opportunities, because we are a young, rich country in a region that has a lot of wealth, and there are so much opportunities. You know, people in all continents, they have problems. Here, most of the time, we have really opportunities that we can leverage. So I think that's a big chance for everyone. Like I said, you have to be part of an ecosystem, and that's what we are trying to create here. I always tell my team that the type of ecosystem we are creating here is probably, I don't think it's ever been produced in the Middle East. And this is, we cannot do it without the right partners, and you guys are also part of our ecosystem. So with this, I really like to take the opportunity to thank you for your time today. I know this is a big topic. We cannot finish it in one hour, but this is just a start. We are working, hopefully with Microsoft, we are working with Threya and others, to develop different programs to address different challenges. I believe what we have in SRT IP, in terms of resources, in terms of capabilities, probably you saw some of the capabilities we have this with the Sharjah Open Innovation Lab, or even the lands we have, or the big projects we have here with transport and logistics, agriculture technologies, 3D, and artificial intelligence, and VR, AR. I think this is all at your disposal. I love our community here. We have almost now 100 companies. Trust me, a big part of them are all stars. And I'm very proud of Threya looking at me, and she's one of the stars, okay? but we really have very good people here. So with this, I really like to thank you for being with us this evening, and I look forward to also welcome you in our next events. This month, we have a very busy month. We will soon have our Women in Technology conference. It will be a hybrid conference on the 23rd and 24th of this month. We will also have on the 15th of this month an exhibition here for the smart cities technologies, and in addition to the event. So this place is buzzing, and please do attend our events, and also you can invite your friends, and look forward to seeing you. Thank you very much, and thank you for your time today.